Hey, that's how rusty I am. I was speaking on mute. But peace, greetings, everyone. Welcome to We Charge Colonialism, the Pan-Afrikan book club. I am Ikemba Ojore of We Charge Colonialism, writer, researcher, and co-chair of We Charge Colonialism. Happy to be here with you all. Make sure that you are following us on all platforms if you're not already. Hey, peace to my comrade, Frank. So I know it's been a minute, but we are back with the book club. It's been a long summer, but I'm happy to be back and continuing these readings and these conversations, important conversations. We Charge Colonialism. If you don't know, we provide the tools to bring decolonization out of abstraction into reality for African people globally. We Charge Colonialism is a grassroots media outlet seeking domestic and international recognition that Africans globally are presently colonized and therefore are owed the right to sovereignty, autonomy, and self-determination. It is the goal of WCC to accomplish a global awareness surrounding the plight of Africans and our status as colonized people. We will raise that awareness with the shared intention of engaging our people to act on it. To achieve this goal, WCC will engage in multiple levels of advocacy in the fight against colonialism, which will include decolonization trainings, decolonization organizing work, public awareness and educational content, community support, on and on and on. So that's just a little bit about us. Hey, peace, Frank. Welcome. Karibu.
Peace, man. Peace. Welcome back.
Indeed, man. Indeed. The summer was hectic. And you see we had had to change the day up to accommodate, my schedule's been crazy on Saturday. But I wanted to make sure that we continue to do this. So appreciate you for making the adjustment, Brother Frank, to Sunday for this. And so if people want to check out your show now, that's on Saturday. So it's still going on, just a different day. And you want to talk, what was you on yesterday?
No, I wasn't on yesterday. I decided to wait until, today's show, then we can just do the announcement.
Okay, for sure, man. So that's what's going to be going on. We just switched the days, but you can still catch both shows on the weekend, Saturday and Sunday. And throughout the week, you may see a show depending on availability and topics that we want to present. So make sure that you are subscribed to We Charge Colonialism so you can get those updates. Just a few things too that's been going on. The Church of the Revolution it is happening today in Philadelphia. For those who are in the area, the Church of the Revolution is led up by different grassroots organizers who came together that sort of want to create an atmosphere, not necessarily, we're not taking people literally to church, but we want people to practice revolution in a religious way, the same way that you would practice your religion, like making it a part of your DNA, waking up and thinking about liberation and revolution, and taking that thought process into your everyday activities in life. So the Church of Revolution is about that, a little bit more too, but if you want to find out more, I'm going to look into Ubuntu principles. I'm going to try to share I'll share the website at some point during this podcast. But just wanted to make folks aware that if you tune in today, if you're tuning in live, you can check that out. And also in New York and Brooklyn, we're getting started back up with the Mega Everest College Coalition, which is a coalition of grassroots organizations such as Black Men Bill, All African People's Revolutionary Party, the Spirit of Mandela People's Senate, the Party for Socialism and Liberation, Brooklyn Eviction Defense, and We Charge Colonialism. So these organizations have come together to implement revolutionary practices on the campus in Brooklyn. So there's political education and skill building going on with that. So just want to, make people aware that, hey, the work outside of what we do here, there's revolutionary work being done. So yeah, that's just a few updates, man. What's been going on with you, Frank?
Man, just trying to keep out of trouble and be focused,
Yeah.
But nothing too much.
For sure, man. So today we're gonna. Last time we got together, we was reading Frantz Fanon, towards African Revolution. I do want to circle back to that, but I didn't want to jump right into it. So today we're going to cover a article that I believe we covered before, Mentacide by Dr. Bobby E. Wright. We'll get into that in a second. But before we do that, just again want to make sure everybody follows, like, share, follow us on Facebook, Instagram, and check out our website at wechargecolonialism.org. But before we get into the reading, I just wanted to, again, this particular piece was put out by Dr. Bobby E. Wright in 1979. And menticide is a term that he coined. We may hear other people use the term menticide, but I believe Dr. Bobby E. Wright was the one who coined this particular concept or theory. Dr. Bobby E. Wright, too, he died. As a matter of fact, let me get into his bio before I start giving his bio. I'm going to read it. If there's anything I feel like I want to add to it, I will. Yeah, so, Dr. Bobby E. Wright, who was born in 1934, and his untimely death in 1982. So he was 48 years old when he passed. He was relatively young, when you think about it. A lot of our thinkers, man, and warriors died at a young age, man. When you think about Kwame Ture, I mean, he was fairly young. He passed away from cancer, and I believe Kwame Ture think the CIA had something to do with that. So I'm gonna unite with that. I know that they wanted to get rid of Kwame Ture for a long time, but Dr. Bobby Wright was fairly young. Bobby Eugene Wright, Pan-African clinical psychologist, mental health administrator, and theorist, was born March 1st, 1934, in Anniston, Alabama, reared in Hobson City, Alabama's first all-black town, by mother Myrtle M. Johnson, stepmother Zella Royal, and father Benny Henry Wright, a Monsanto Chemical Company laborer. He was the fifth of six siblings: Albert, Benny, John, Nellie, and Levi. Wright served in the U.S. Army from 51 to 1954 and then moved to Chicago. Hey, peace. Yes, we back in business. In Chicago, Illinois, where in 1959 he married Easter Overton, a Hyde Park Career Academy High School mathematics teacher. They had one son, Marcus Delaney Wright, completed the B.S. in education at Chicago State University in 1966 and an M.A. in counseling and guidance 2 years later. He earned it in 1972 at the University of Chicago. He earned the 1972 University of Chicago clinical psychology PhD. So a truant officer for Chicago Public Schools in the 60s, Wright was a member of the Association of Afro-American Educators and the Chicago Teachers Union. In 1968, he organized the Black Teachers Caucus, which successfully challenged the Board of Education racist hiring practices. Wright taught the psychology of Black nationalism at Comm University, a weekend Pan-African Studies program at the Center of Inner City Studies at Northeastern Illinois University, that he helped establish in 1968 with the Chicago group consisting of Jamala Rogers, Georgia Palmer, Eva, and Jacob Carruthers, Conrad Ward, Anderson Thomas, F.H. Hammurabi, Rob, Hannibal, Afrique, Harold Pates, Harold Rogers, and members of the Chicago Black Student Movement. Wright's most prominent students included Fred Hampton, Larry Obadeli Williams, and Kobe K.K. Kaboom, Common University was instrumental in establishing important adolescent rites of passage, the Confederation of Pan-African Organizations, Institute of Positive Education, Kemetic Institute, Black People's Topographical Research Center, and African Liberation Day. Yo, he was putting in that work, man. He was putting in that work. So as part of the Task Force for Black Political Empowerment, Wright, Alvin Bolt Edwards, Edward Gardner, Jacob Dickens, and Albert Cadillac Johnson helped Congressman Harold Washington begin his campaign to become Chicago's first Black mayor in 1983. Fond of saying Aluda continua la cima tushende bila shaka. That's Kiswahili right there. Let me do that again. Aluda continua la cima dushende bila shaka. The struggle will continue, and we shall conquer without a doubt. Wright died on April 6, 1982, at the age of 48. At the time, he was Association of Black Psychologists president-elect and director of the Garfield Park Community Mental Health Center, which was renamed in his honor. All right. So that's a little bit about Dr. Bobby E. Wright, whose text we're going to be covering today. So let's get right into it. Anything you want to say before we get started on this text?
No, let's go ahead.
Right on. And peace and greetings to everyone out there. I know we gotta get folks used to checking us out on Sunday, but looking forward to building with everyone on this day. So we'll get right into this text. This is Mentacide, the ultimate threat to the Black race. This was first published in 1979. 79 was a good year. So there's no denying that the entire world is in crisis and all cultures are being transformed seemingly without direction. Further, it is extremely difficult to identify a stable, unified belief system for any racial group or ethnic group, except for one overt, incontrovertible exception, namely the anti-Black racial groups. However, the anti-Black character is not the cause of world turmoil. It is simply a major factor, and at this point in time, is only important to the Black race. Without any elaborate research design being necessary, the world crisis can be traced directly to the pathological needs of one group, the white race, regardless of their ethnicity. Never in the history of the universe has the destiny of so many been controlled by so few. The white subjugation of the Black race and the control of their land is an essential ingredient in contributing to their insatiable, morbid, predatory appetite for world domination. In view of the above, the Black race is presently facing an enemy whose method of destruction is without any historical precedent, namely Mentacide, which is defined as the deliberate and systematic destruction of an individual or group's mind. Mentacide differs in theory and practice from concepts such as brainwashing, and that its ultimate aim is the extirpation of an entire race, whereby brainwashing is primarily used to convert individuals or groups to a cause or belief. No serious scientist today who has any rudimentary understanding of human behavior question the fact that there now exist techniques which can be utilized to control brain phenomena and in the process eliminate chance behavior, or more succinctly, establish a law which can state it very simply: he who controls minds controls behinds. There's one essential condition in order for the process of Mentacide to be effective, namely the control of the opposing group's institutions or the power to significantly influence them. Unfortunately for the Black race, that condition exists through the world. In fact, some Black groups, such as those of the United States and Tanzania, or occupied Tanzania, are enslaved rather than being oppressed, exploited, etc., and that all their life-sustaining institutions are controlled by whites. There is no denying that there are whites who are oppressed and exploited by other whites, but they are still able to significantly influence institutional change. The technique Mentacide deludes Blacks into believing that there is a commonality between them and oppressed whites, which leads Blacks to attempt to form alliances with them. Yet, in spite of historical failures of these alliances to benefit Blacks, they continue to pursue this process. Unfortunately, Blacks will continue to utilize white-directed techniques in attempting to solve their problems and will continue to be unsuccessful until they can develop a Black social theory. There is an African proverb that tells the traveler of life that if you don't know where you are going, then any road will get you there. Without a social theory, all behavior, even if it is considered revolutionary, operates by chance or by external direction, and no group at this competitive time in history whose basic defense is faith in the Lord or white folk or any other forms of superstition will continue to exist. A social theory determines the destiny of a people by establishing guidelines of life, such as it defines their relationship with other living things. It defines values and rituals, methods of education, how enemies are to be dealt with, etc. The ultimate achievement of a Black social theory would be the recreation of Black culture. There's a quote here that I'll get to, but I wanted to see if there was anything we should build on before we get too deep in this particular piece, because there was definitely a lot said. Anything stood out to you?
Yeah, from the piece that you just read, it's like he and Michael Garvey have the same thoughts of schools, right?
Yeah.
When Michael Garvey told W.E.B. Du Bois that segregation can only happen if we segregate with ourselves and not in white institution, unlike W.E. Du Bois, who said we can segregate within the system. So he and Michael Garvey had the same view, especially when he spoke about Black social theory. And that is exactly what Michael Garvey tried to do. And when he also said one who control the mind control everything, right? And that is what exactly happening in our daily activities, in our daily nations, and to the continent at large. And that is why you see most of our leaders, whether on the African continent or in the diaspora, right? Even in the US here, most of our Black leaders, because they do not have a theory towards Black people. They do not have a system that we Black people can build on, because no matter what we do, right? You see in the US, for example, every race in the US here have theory relating to their culture, relating to their prospective nations or whatever continent where they come from, right? We can say that about the Indian. They have their social theory. And that is why you don't see harassment within the Indian community. The Chinese or the Asian, they also have that kind of a social, Chinese social theory when it comes to, to them. So what am I saying here is that with Black people, we do not have that system because we want to be identified with a system. I can tell you, right? The Black man will want to be part of the Chinese or how they call it social theory or the Asian social theory, and the Black man will want to be part of the Indian social theory. The Black man will want to be part of the white social theory, but the Black man will not be willing to be part of a Black social theory. In fact, the Black man will be the one to tell you, why should we do this? Why can't we all come together? But on the other hand, the other races, right, they are not saying, why can't we all come together? Why can't Black come together? Because they understand in order for them to strive, in order for them to survive, right, they come first. The Indian come first, the Asian come first, white come first in order for them to survive. And that's how it is. So in order for us to survive, we come first, and that is what this piece is talking about. We need to have a system that we can believe in, that we can build on. And if we don't have that system, what's going to happen? Because we want to be identified with other theory, with other social theory or with other people, right? That's how they're going to control us. Because at the end of the day, we don't have anything to believe on. We believe in what we get from people. And once we believe in what we get from people, we look up to those people for what are social activities, what are economic activities, and those things. And that is what we as Black, both on the African continent, we find it difficult. That is why they can call African leaders. I mean, you've been seeing this, right? Recently, they just had Japan, just invited African leaders. Liberia was involved, and they all went there. So, because again, we don't have that Black theory that, well, Black people or leaders on the African continent, right, will have that kind of a theory to come together instead of them traveling. Because at the end of the day, if the Japanese government call Africans, they are calling Africans because of what Africans have. If we didn't have anything, look, no world leader was going to call Africans leader to come and meet them. For what reason? No, because we have something on the African continent. We have something in these African nations. That is why these leaders are calling up. Like, why can, for example, the United States government call on Japanese leader or all the European leaders, and all the Asian leaders for them to come and sit down and discuss? Why they can't do that? But in a year term, all these world leaders will call African leaders over 10, 15 times, only Africa. And all of them will go. What that is because what the reading is talking about, we do not have a Black agenda. We do not have Black social theory that we can build on and say, look, this is it, and this is what need to unite us. And people like try to bring it out, like the most recent one was Gaddafi. Gaddafi have this saying in the Black social theory where he said, African back home and African out of the continent, we need to come together. The resources is for African home and abroad. And that was exactly Kwame Nkrumah as well, right? They got rid of him. And again, all these things are happening is because, right, we are not united. We are not united. And recently, the only person or leaders that are trying to do it, and the reason why the West have not been successful yet to assassinate them, to take them down, is because Black, both home and abroad, believe in the Black social theory of Abraham Tuareg and the AES, because that is what exactly this reading is talking about. And that is why the West have not yet succeeded to assassinate or to eliminate or to unalive Abraham Tuareg. That is why there have been numerous assassination attempts, and it have failed because Africans, both home and abroad, have realized that Abraham Tuareg or the AES have that Black social theory, right? That we need to build on. And I love what they are doing. And this reading, these are things that we need to read to remind us of the West.
No, definitely, I agree with that analysis, man. I wanted to build on a few things you said. I'm going to go to this text as well. This part, I wanted to go to his definition of Mentacide, or his description of Mentacide. And just so that everybody is on the same page, and throughout this whole text, he's describing the impact of Mentacide. And he says Mentacide is the deliberate and systematic destruction of an individual or group's mind. The destruction of an individual or group's mind. Now, the destruction of the individual or group's mind is for a particular result. Like this is done deliberately to get a particular result, and not necessarily, and that result is genocide. And I think he makes this distinction between Mentacide. Well, he makes this distinction between Mentacide and brainwashing. he says Mentacide differs in theory and practice from concepts such as brainwashing, and that its ultimate aim is the extirpation, which is the elimination of an entire race, whereby brainwashing is primarily used to convert individuals or groups to a cause of belief. So Dr. Bobby Wright is going as far as saying they don't even want our existence. They want to eliminate us completely. Now, some people may argue like, hey, they need us. We can have that conversation, because some people would say, no, they still need us for labor. They still need us. You know, that's what colonialism and slavery was about, right? Or is about, I should say. The enslavement, the oppression and exploitation of a group's resources, their labor, their land, and other resources. But Mentacide, he's making this argument, hey, the European has this philosophy where they just want to eliminate us altogether. I think that there are competing forces among the white community. And I wonder what you think, Frey. But I think there's competing forces, competing ideologies. There are people white folks who want to keep us around for that exploitation. But there are a group within that white community that has a policy of genocide and wants to completely wipe us out. So I think there's some truth to what he's saying. I don't think it's absolute, but I do agree that there is a significant portion of white people who are practicing Mentacide. So I wanted to pull that out. I think just to build on some things that you were saying, slavery and colonialism. Like he who controls minds controls behinds, right? And I think the only video that we have of Dr. Bobby Wright, when he speaks on this, that white people control all our life-sustaining institutions. All our life-sustaining institutions is controlled by white people. That's slavery. You know, that's colonialism, that's slavery. And it's to your point, Frank, we want to assimilate or acculturate into white society because we look at them as all powerful. They have the resources. They are the apex of civilization, because this is what we have been brainwashed into believing. And this is why African-centered education is so important and decolonization is so important, because it counters that type of ideology. And so, you know, they control, and we talk about license thing, we know they control the education institutions, they control the economic institutions, but we're talking about they control our access to food, they control our access to water, right? So when we talk about food, clothing, and shelter, who are Black people, African people dependent on for these life-sustaining institutions? So we have to break that chain in order for us to be liberated. You know, that's slavery. When you're dependent on another person for your existence, that's slavery. And this is what the struggle, you know, this is why revolution is so important, as far as like incorporating that into your thought process, because every day we should be thinking about how to gain control of those institutions that we once controlled in the past, before this relationship we had with these colonizers. The Black social theory, I think Pan-Africanism, African internationalism, that is put forth by Chairman Omali Yeshitela, African internationalism. These are Black social theories, revolutionary Pan-Africanism, I should say, that we should be adopting. I agree with you on Marcus Garvey. Marcus Garvey definitely came with, you know, Black social theory that wasn't able to, I guess, the UNIA, that movement wasn't able to develop to its highest level because of the CIA. Well, the CIA was around at the time, but the BOI, I'm sorry, which would later become the FBI. But because of the United States government undermining of the UNIA movement, though they still exist, they are still here. If Marcus Garvey, if there wasn't this concerted effort to rid the United States of Marcus Garvey, the Garvey movement, man, I think we would have an African state at this point, you know, all African state. But yeah, there's just some thoughts I had on that. I'll move on. He quotes Sheikh Ate Diop here, And he says the eminent Black scientist, Dr. Sheikh Ante Diop, succinctly placed culture in a proper perspective by stating the following. I consider culture as a rampart that protects a people, a collectivity. Culture must, above all, place a protective role. It must assure the cohesion of the group. Following this line of thinking, the vital functions of a body of African human sciences is to develop this sense of collective belonging through a reinforcement of culture. This can be done by developing linguistic facts, by reestablishing the historical consciousness of African and Black people so as to arrive at a common feeling of belonging to the same cultural and historical past. Once this is attained, it will become difficult to divide and rule and to oppose African communities one against the other. This is when we talk about, you hear people say, stay on code. We got to develop that Black code. All of this division, I'm ADOS, I'm FBA, I'm Pan-African, I'm this and that, anything. Well, of course, like in the Pan, we look to connect all Africans, but anything that is attempting to divide the African community one against the other is antithetical to our liberation as a people, antithetical to revolution. So we need to stray away from that as Black folks. However, while it's relatively easy to write about the concept of Black social theory and culture, it will be extremely difficult to develop them. The major barrier to that dynamic is that due to the success of metacidal techniques, Blacks are now anti-intellectual, anti-theoretical, and ahistorical. Yet, in spite of this reality, the Black race has always produced outstanding Black scholars, admittedly with gaps in their theories that can easily be understood when viewed in the context of individuals opposing institutions. And this should say 1903. In 1903, Dr. W.B. Du Bois, the eminent Black scholar, wrote the new legendary prophetic statement, the problem of the 20th century is the problem of the color line. The relationship of the darker to the lighter races of men in Asia and Africa and America and the islands of the sea. In reviewing this work exactly 50 years later, Dr. Du Bois wrote, I still think today as yesterday that the color line is the greatest problem of this century. But today I see more clearly than yesterday that in back of the problem of race and color lies a greater problem which both obscures and implements it, and that is the fact that so many civilized people are willing to live in comfort, even if the price of this is poverty, ignorance, and disease for the majority of their fellow men. That to maintain this privilege, men have waged war. Until today, war tends to become universal and continuous, and the excuse for this has continued to be color and race. It is puzzling somewhat unless one understands the process of Mentacide as to how Dr. Du Bois could have had such clarity of insight in 1903 about race, and yet in later years places secondary to class imperative, or in other words, how he accepted the analysis of Karl Marx, who on the question of race was not qualified to even discuss it. An analysis of the historical and present relationship between the Black and white races clearly supports Dr. Du Bois's 1903 position, and in fact makes it very conservative by his restricting it to the 20th century. The analysis shows that the race problem has existed since the Europeans were first welcomed into Africa, and that there is absolutely no evidence to support the notion that it will ever be solved without the extermination of both of the races. It is very clear that whites understand this reality very well. Well, Bogle, 1960, documents the historical racist character of the white race by stating, most Marxists, socialists, and any non-Marxian social scientists claim that racism originated after and as a result of capitalism, and therefore would disappear when capitalism disappears. 5 original theories usually show that slavery begets racism before capitalism existed. The second is that the capitalism origin premise does not explain the matter character of racism in several European countries that speak different languages and have different cultures. Gobineau's theory never reached the essentially illiterate white masses in its time. Mass literacy is a relatively recent phenomenon. Many countries in Europe today have relatively illiterate masses. Portugal, for example, according to many, has an illiteracy rate of over 75%. So his and other theories cannot account for it. Their criticism has been stated, that is, European languages are anti-Black. There has not been enough time since capitalism began for all of these different languages to have acquired the same character. Fourth, if the reason for racism was conquest, then all conquered people should have judged equally. All conquered people should have been judged equally inferior. They were not. Orientals were considered strange, exotic, and even barbaric, but not unintelligent. Yellow people were considered to be less inferior than blacks because they were less black, not simply because they weren't conquered or were conquered to a lesser degree. The fifth criticism deals with the contention that the elimination of capitalism will eliminate racism. As others have noted, even if capitalism were racism's mother, elimination of capitalism would not necessarily mean elimination of racism. All living things are capable of reproduction, but the children survive after the parents dies, often changing their nature in doing so. Today, racism is firmly rooted in the white masses. Contrarily, capitalism is not. The average white does not understand what capitalism is, nor can they practice it, but they can practice racism that is reinforced by their whole culture. A change to another political system, dictatorship of the white proletariat, for example, will not alter the collective mentality of a given people in any reasonable period of time. There are considerations. White workers who socialists claim are not really racist do not perceive it to be in their interest to eliminate racism. As the United States of America declines, whites will reason that a minority black population is expendable. A genocidal war against blacks would appear to be an easy solution for an already armed, organized white population. Under white-dominated socialism, protests in any form about racism will be outlawed as against the revolution as in Cuba. Meeting among blacks for any reason will be illegal. Many of the superstructures of capitalism can be placed on a socialist base without serious modification of the former, just as can be done with a house. In any event, we are doomed if we place our survival in the hands of a white body. In his comparable book, The Destruction of Black Civilization, Great Issues of a Race from 4500 to 2000 AD, 4500 BC to 2000 AD, Dr. Chancellor Williams has impeccable credentials as a historian and using incontrovertible research data, accurately delineated the true relationship that has always existed between the blacks and white races. Further in the section of the book, A View from the Bridge, this omniscient black scientist clearly articulated the world threat that confronts the black race and exhibited a trait that is uncharacteristic of black intellectuals by suggesting methods that could possibly lead to a resolution of black problems. Quote, and the bridge was suspended between the eternities, arched so high up that the watchman could from his towers see all that has gone before and all that was to come. And that is why the anxious, helpless people of this crazy world continue to look up in despair and cry, "O watchman, tell us what the signs of promise are. What then is the view from the bridge?" The outlook is grim. For the black people of the world, there is no bright tomorrow. The blacks may continue to live in their dream world of singing, dancing, marching, praying, and hoping because of the deluding signs of what looks like victories, still trusting in the ultimate justice of the white man. But 1,000 years hence, their descendants will be substantially where the race was 1,000 years before. For the white people, still masters of the world, do not have to yield. They have never changed their real attitude toward black people during all the passing centuries, and there's absolutely nothing upon which to base the concessions on some demands. Yes, expediency dictates this. The overall view from the bridge, then, is simply the view of where and how the black people of the world stand today, after a summary review of at least 6,000 years of their history. And whether the focus is on Africa, the Caribbeans, the crossroads of history, and confused. One of the most troublesome facts in the study of history over long periods of time, such as several centuries, is that a truth may slowly emerge, period after period, until it clearly forms itself into a truth impregnable, a fact nowhere explicitly states as such in the mass of data covered. As one continues to move on down through the centuries, countless events and situations may continue to make supporting additions to what has been established as an unassailable fact. Yet the truth may be so repugnant, so utterly void of any rational, intelligent reason for its existence, that hardly a historian will wish to state it in his work. Yet I did just that when I wrote that the whites are the implacable foe, the traditional and everlasting enemy of the blacks. The compelling reason for publicly putting this declaration in its historical context is made clear. The necessary re-education of blacks and a possible solution of racial crisis can begin strangely enough only when blacks fully realize the central fact in their lives. The white man is their bitter enemy. For this is not the ranting of wide-eyed militancy, but the calm and unmistakable verdict of several thousand years of documented history. Hey, if you haven't read The Destruction of Black Civilization, I don't know what you're waiting for. Make sure you pick that book and go through it. As mentioned here, Dr. Bobby Wright mentions Dr. Chancellor Williams. He gives this history of white-black relations, white war, the white people's war against black civilization, going all the way back to 4500. He talks about the invasion of ancient Kemet, all the way up to Western Africa and so forth until present. And he also develops a plan for action in that book, right at the back of the book. There's a plan of action to overcome this war against black people. Interesting. He says I think he lifts up. I'll pass it to you, Frank, but he uplifts this psychology of white folks that I think cannot be denied. Because if we look around the world, if there's people who want to say that what Dr. Bobby Wright is putting forth is not necessarily absolute, I'm not going to argue that there aren't white people who commit race suicide, because there has historically been individuals that have done that. But when we look at state power, when we look at white people who have state power, where can we look at historically where there has been a white nation? And I could be wrong, so correct me in the chat, where there has been a white nation that has come to the defense of black nation to overthrow colonialism or slavery. Like, where has that been? And Frank, I'll pass it to you, but I just wanted to throw that out there just in case people may have some resignation on that. Let's talk about folks that actually had the power to do something to overturn, colonial capitalism and its exploitation and oppression of African people around the world. But yeah, Frank, is there anything that stood out to you, man?
Thank you so much, Kremai. You see, this video is very great because, so first of all, he's talking about Black social theory, and then I believe he has also read colonial time, and because he talked about culture, right? It's very important that he kind of blend the two together. First, he's talking about social theory, that in a nutshell, what we're going to have in common that we can build on, right? And then he came down to culture. So, and you can see when you do your history, the European, when they went to Africa, they knew the dynamic, they knew the importance of what culture is, to the African continent. And that is why today, right? For example, you will see in some African country, they speak Swahili. Like, you go to Kenya, you go to Tanzania, and then you go to South Africa and those things. So in doing that, right, culture is very important because it identifies the strength, right? The strength and the unity of a people. So if anybody, for example, before 1884, because we all know it was that time that they went and divided Africa. So before 1884, right, there was no name such as what we see on the African continent. There was no border such as what we see on the African continent. Now, what am I saying this? I'm saying this because a lot of time the European will write their book, and we African will read those books, And because we do not have knowledge to prior before the European came to Africa, and then we will all agree with the analysis that the European will put in our book. All right. So, for example, you read European books, and they will tell you one of the reasons of the African not uniting is because of tribal differences, right? Or it's because of tribes. For example, they will just say it's because of tribes, or it's because of their way of practice, and when it comes to culture and things. And we African will see these things, right? And then because we don't have knowledge to how we live back then, and we just read these European books, but now knowing it's actually against us. If we take their analysis, it will not unite us. But the truth of the matter here is culture during those days is it really united Africans. So, for example, like I said, right, during that time, people spoke Swahili in Kenya today, South Africa, or Tanzania, and those things. So, if they spoke Swahili in one area, and then you see other people going against another tribes in other area, right, who spoke also Swahili, the people of that kingdom, because again, this go back again to say, during that time, right, kingdoms in Africa, they were states because they had their way of governance, governance system, right? They have their democratic form of government where everybody came to a town hall meeting to discuss event of importance that will move the community, that will move the nation, or that will move the people within that locality. That's how democracy was then practiced during that time, right? But now that we read these books, because it just go back again to the same 1884 Berlin Conference, where Leopold, message to the missionary, where he was telling them, do not go and preach on the African continent about thou shalt not kill. They already know it, right? That is, again, to tell you, they were not the one that brought the Bible to us. And he said, do not go and read to them that thou shalt not cover your neighbor's wife. They already know it, right? Those things. But what he told them was, go and tell them your way of life is bad. Again, that's go to culture. You see, go and destroy their culture, because their culture identify them. Again, that again go to Bobby, what he was talking about, black social theory. All right. So he was telling them, go and destroy. And that was the mission of the missionary. And even up to today, nothing has changed. That is still the mission of European missionary, and even some of our African preachers. Okay. They are also part of that missionary because they are getting incentive. They are getting money. Again, that goes to one who control the mind, one who control your stomach, one who control your finances, control you, right? So again, so their mission was go and destroy the African culture, because they identify with those culture. Go and destroy it. Tell them your way of life is bad. What you practice is bad. But don't go and preach that should not cover your neighbor wife, right? Because in a nutshell, they already know it. But just tell them your culture is bad. Your way of doing things is bad. Your way of belief system is bad. But don't explain to them what they are doing and things. And then tell them this is the way of salvation. Tell them this is a way of life, right? And once they accept, what then going to happen is there's going to be division. So their culture have been destroyed. That social, that black social theory, right, have been destroyed. And now they will believe in what you are giving them. And once they believe in what you are giving them, then they will begin to fight among themselves, because one have a belief system that is different from the other belief system. So what then happen here is they will begin to fight among themselves. They will begin to destroy their culture, because you will even see Africans talking against their culture. And that is what today, right? You will see Africans talking about, hey, you guys believe in this. Why you guys have never moved on? You guys still are this. But if you look at the African belief system, if you look at the African form, belief systems and stuff, or their culture, right? It is not about money. It is not about finances. It is not about capitalism, right? It's about the bond. It's about the unity. That's the kind of African belief system. we have. It is not about enriching yourself. It is not about building mansion or riding private jet and things. It is not about exploitation. If I can put it that way, unlike the European belief system that they can put on us, it's about exploitation, right? And that is why you see people keep any, and they don't care for the next man down there. So on the other hand, the African belief system was not about one person getting rich. It was not about somebody even getting rich. It was about, right, the community, building the community. It was about what the community can benefit. It was about a system that everyone would benefit, not a system where few would benefit and then the few dictate to everybody. No, it was about everybody having a share, everybody having an input and things. That's the kind of belief system we have, and that's the cultural system that was destroyed that Bobby is talking about. And he said something, right? And let me just elaborate on it. And he said, now that Africans have or black people have some form of life, the thing is victory. For example, right? What are some of those things that we African today we practice and we think is victory? Election. Election is one, because now on the African continent, right, we have elections now, and then we thinking that we elect our leader. Then we think that we have independence, we have victory. But the reality here is, having those elections, what have it done to the African continent? Absolutely nothing. Look at Abraham Traore, right? For example, the AES. I mean, the people, the citizens of that region, I can tell you, they will even say we don't want election. See, that's the kind of cultural theory. That's the kind of black theory that unite black people. They will say we don't want election. Now, why are they saying they don't want election? It is because, right, they have found out elections, it means nothing. Elections cannot improve the life of the people, and elections cannot actually build. Election just mean, right, if, and I'm speaking with Western term now, election on the African continent just mean if the leader in power does not support Western agenda, Western influence, then there have to be election, and they will come and manipulate that election, remove that person, and then put somebody in that will be there. And we have seen that with Paul Biya. Have you seen the European or the Western world criticize Paul Biya? No. Have you seen them criticize of Farouk? No, because why? They support the agenda of the West. Unlike the AES, the reason why the West are talking, because those people will not support Western agenda. And because of what they are doing, the people find it necessary that we believe in their culture. You see, we believe in the culture of dictatorship that will dictate, right? That will dictate for the interest of the people. And that's the kind of dictatorship form of government that is going in Burkina Faso or Mali, Niger, because they dictate, right, for the benefit of the people, not the benefit of the West. They dictate that, you know what, this is what needs to be done to improve our continent, to improve our nation, to improve the life of our people. This is what needs to be done that will unite both African home and abroad. That's the kind of form of dictatorship we need. And that's the kind of social theory, that's the kind of culture that we need, because in reality, right, it's just going back, because during that time we have our kings and queens who rule for so many years, but time for meeting, they call all people to the center of the town, and they sat down there, they discuss what was beneficial for the kingdom or for the nation, and everybody partook. And that is what going on with the AES. You see, ordinary citizens are bringing their own contribution. They are building roads, they are building housing units and those things, and they believe in our system of a government that this is the kind of thing we need, unlike elections. So we African nations having elections, right, we feel that, oh, it's victory. The white men no longer control us because people are going to the ballot box. But the truth is that election was not the one that put your person in or that leader in. That election was manipulated, and somebody else's controlling. And another thing again, having dinner, like warning. So I just kind of put that in just from the reading, right? Now, African leaders will come. right, and have dinner with the Western world, right, with the Western leader, to the extent you sit on the same table, and then you feel so proud that, yeah, we are independent, yeah, we are at our top. And then, for example, again, you saw William Ruto, right, sitting in the White House in a presidential chair, and you saw Biden stood over him, right? Biden gave him the seat. Hey, man, come and sit down. So these things, when we see these things, we feel that we have arrived. We feel that, we got that victory. But the reality here is, if you go back to the 1820s, right, before they took the rebellion slave to Africa, this was what I was said, and by how they call it, Adam Smith, right? Adam Smith. That's what he said. Look, listen. If you want for the slave to obey, if you want for the slave to think that they are free, right? I mean, have dinner with them, sit with them on the same table, and eat with them. I mean, have conversation with them. I mean, let them go to hospital, the same hospital you go to. Let them go there. I mean, give them that a differential treatment and things, right? In their mind, they will feel that they are no longer slave, they are free. But however, right, once you do those things to them, anything you tell them, you dictate to them, they will do it. You see, and that's the kind of mentality in this current society we have that Bobby is talking about in this reading.
Appreciate that, comrade. I wanted to, and we got a couple of minutes before we end. Last thing I want to add on, brainwashing. This is because it was some things that you spoke about in regards to this pushing of European culture, the wiping away, or the negation of African culture, which was used as a tool to control African people as well. So the supplanting their culture in among African people, talking about the European. And that brainwashing, again, is different from Mentacide, which I mentioned earlier. And just a bit more clarity when you see, if you think about it, last thing I'll say on this, if you think about if Africans were valued, if we were valued by this European political economy, there wouldn't be so much violence. There wouldn't be so much incarceration among the African community in the United States and around the world. Like we see genocides and wars, conflicts being committed around the world, whether it's by outsiders or against each other. Because even the intercommunal violence or the horizontal violence, there would be a solution. We will be sitting down together, coming up with a solution to the problem if African people were valued. But there must be something, there must be some benefit in the continued violence and destruction of African society and African people. There's an economic benefit, and there's the benefit of the complete elimination of African people too. That is looked at as a threat to the survival of Europeans. And so there's just something that we have to really come to grips with when we look at what is going on in our community. If we were really, really valued, because during slavery, we were valued. So where was this problem with what they call black on black crime and incarceration? There was no mass incarceration. There was no such thing as black on black crime. Well, all of a sudden, like, this is a thing. We have been, now we're criminals, and we have this predilection towards violence, which is all bull. It's been designed, it's been constructed in a way for us to devalue ourselves and to cause chaos and confusion and destruction within our own communities. So we can build more on that, but this is mental-cidal behavior. This is what Dr. Bobby E. Wright talks about when he said mental-cidal behavior. And when you have Black intellectuals or Black people who go up in front of the Black community and they defend white society, and they talk about the problems of the Black community without discussing or pointing to the system as the root cause of it. This is mental-cidal thinking, mental-cidal behavior. So we can go on and on about this. I think we can finish this particular article up next week. We're almost halfway through it. we can kick off next week. This is the new time, Sundays at 10 a.m. But you can catch Frank on Saturdays. Frank is still doing the show on Saturdays at 1, or are you doing it in the morning time?
I would say 12. I'll have to bring it back, to 12 instead of 1.
Okay, all right. So you can catch Frank on Saturdays now at 12. We just switched the days around, but definitely subscribe, like, share. Appreciate you all being here. Before we dip out, I want to make sure you join our Patreon. If you haven't already, you can go to wechargecolonialism.org. I'll put that in the chat. That's a way you can support us. Also, you can support by our Cashapp, WCC Think Tank. I'll put it up as well. And also have started a fundraiser, Awaken Minds fundraiser, which is a fundraiser that I'm doing to secure 2 books, From Niggas to Gods and Breaking the Psychological Chains of Slavery by Dr. Naeem Akbar. These are 2 books that I plan on giving away. So I plan on purchasing 200 books, 100 of each, and giving these books out into the community, but strategically giving them out because I want to have study sessions around these books. These are 2 books in particular that particularly influenced me to want to know more about myself as an African, the history before slavery, and what's the next step now that I have been gaining this knowledge. So this trajectory that I have been on, it started with these particular books. So I want to be able to give back the way that someone put those books in my hand. I want to do the same thing. And to have some building sessions to combat the Mentacide that we're talking about right now. So if you do want to support the campaign right now, I'm at $775. There's $525 I raised through GoFundMe and $250 I raised outside of GoFundMe. But you can put books if you're going to support the campaign. You can send it to WCC Think Tank. That's our Cash App. Put books in there, so I know that it's specifically towards this campaign. But no pressure. There's never any pressure, man. Because I know our people was on the grind just like we on the grind. So only if you can spare anything. So appreciate you all. Frank, I'm gonna leave you with the last words. You got anything for the folks, man?
Nothing much, man. All I can say is, I will see you guys on Saturday night, every Saturday, 12 p.m. The show, we're gonna do the Saturday show instead of the Sunday, so we're gonna have a Saturday 12 p.m. So, I'm glad that Nkima is back. At least, we can get the show running. So we still want Natasha come back too, right? But this is it, and I'm glad.
For sure. So peace. And I'm going to leave us with a promo before we get out of here. Just a little bit more about the campaign. But peace, everybody. Appreciate you joining us. See you next week.
Hey, Philly. We're launching the Awaken Minds campaign to encourage our youth to gain knowledge of themselves. Throughout history, our people have understood the link between reading and liberation. American education system has always pushed against the efforts of Black people to organize themselves against all forms of oppression. The reason why our campaign is essential is because our people are as confused as ever about our direction and purpose. Leader after leader, organization after organization, and movement after movement have been undermined and destroyed by our power structure. We need a new generation to transform our circumstances. have people acquire knowledge of themselves. That's where we'll start. From there, the possibilities are endless. We need your support today, whatever you can give to help support our goal. We're aiming to elevate the consciousness of our youth and transform the conditions of our society. Power to
the white power structure, because that's all we have in America. And the white power structure today is just as much interested in perpetuating slavery as the white power structure was 100 years ago. Only now they use modern methods of doing so. And realizing that the black people in this country are waking up and becoming filled with a desire to be looked upon as men and as human beings. The white power structure, to slow down that struggle for freedom and human dignity, uses tricks. 100 years ago they could do it with chains. Today they use tricks. And one of the tricks that they've invented is this token integration. To get Negroes, so-called Negro leaders, to accept a few token crumbs of integration that don't solve any problem for the masses of black people in this country whatsoever, but it does make the hand-picked Negroes be satisfied to slow down the cry of the masses. And a good example of that is, as soon as the spirit of rebellion or revolution began to spread among the masses of black people in this country, and they began to take an active part, and they showed that they weren't confined to this nonviolent approach, then the government or the power structure began to sit up and take notice and